Let me guess your situation. You may have finished your studies, already have your resume done, and have applied to all the job offers that interest you. It turns out that there is a company that has taken an interest in you and has called you for what will be your first job interview. And now you have a doubt about how you should behave in that interview. Did I get it right? Don't worry too much because you are in the right place. In this video, we are going to see how you should answer in an interview when you have no work experience. I am going to help you become the chosen candidate. Hello, how are you? I am John Charles, I work in human resources, and I am here to give you a hand. Trust me, you have a good chance of getting the job because otherwise, they wouldn't have called you. But before we see how you can answer in this job interview, let me tell you that in the description you have a few videos that might interest you, and I particularly recommend this video where you will see different common questions and answers in job interviews. Now let's get started. First, understand your situation. It is not possible for you to give your best in this interview if you are not aware of the exact situation you are in. And the thing is, even though you don't have work experience, the company has shown interest in you, which is why they called you and why you are going to have an interview. So your situation is actually very favorable. The human resources person, once they have done the resume screening, will call 5 or maybe 10 people, and from those calls, they will move on to the interview stage. Position yourself among 3 to 5 people, and you can be sure that the human resources professional conducting these interviews wants to spend as little time as possible on the selection processes because, in the end, these individuals are being evaluated for their work just like any other employee. So the less time they spend on selection, the more efficient their work is. And by the way, the less time this person spends on the selection processes, the more money the company is saving in its bottom line. In short, you are one of the few people who have the option to join this company. This is very important to keep in mind because it will give you the right confidence to face the interview. This leads me directly to the second piece of advice. Show a good balance of confidence. Surely you have heard that in job interviews you should present yourself as a positive and confident person. This is true, but you don't have experience, so it's very likely that the level of confidence you show won't be very well balanced. What I mean is that you might go overboard. You can't imagine the number of inexperienced people who, when I've interviewed them, have come across as overly confident. And I know that they are not really as arrogant as they seem to me, but that is exactly the impression they gave during the interview. And I'm very sorry, but we cannot proceed with these profiles. The confidence you show in the interview should not be exaggerated. And make no mistake, the person interviewing you has interviewed many others before and knows that if you are showing a lot of confidence when you don't have much or any work experience, you are actually just displaying an external facade of a complex you have precisely because you lack experience. It's okay to show confidence. But what I mean is that this confidence shouldn't be exaggerated. However, don't go to the absolute opposite extreme either, that is, showing yourself as an insecure person. Neither of these options, being overconfident or being insecure, will get you the job. It is rather the balance between the two things that will give you success in the selection process. Third, your communication style. How you communicate is directly related to the confidence you have, but that doesn't mean you should stop paying attention to the communication you are demonstrating. We are going to divide this part of the communication into two. Your verbal language and your nonverbal or body language. Regarding your verbal language, that is what you say, you should keep in mind that you can relax and be yourself, although you shouldn't take this as an invitation to behave too informally. Do not use overly colloquial language like the kind you might use with your friends. You are in a professional environment. You should appear natural, but don't overdo it. And regarding the speed at which you articulate your words, you should speak at a normal pace. Something very common in interviews with little experience is that you are very nervous. And when we are nervous, we tend to speak very quickly. So try not to speak too quickly, avoid stuttering, and if you need to, practice in front of a mirror before the interview. On the other hand, we have nonverbal language, what your body expresses while you are speaking. It is essential that you dedicate a very important part of your attention to this language. Again, nerves are going to be your worst enemy here, because normally, when we don't have experience, we tend to be very nervous in interviews, and this makes us gesture a lot with our hands, or you might accidentally hit the table, which can be mistaken for an overly authoritative personality. For example, you run the risk of making strange faces, frowning a lot, or leaving your mouth open when you are listening to the interviewer. If you are in a video conference interview, which are very common nowadays, you might avoid much of this risk, especially from the waist down, such as leg shaking, which shows exaggerated nervousness. But even so, take care of your body posture. Sit up straight, but not excessively rigid. Don't slide down in the chair as the interview progresses, and avoid any distractions around you. Just as I mentioned when we talked about confidence, your body language and verbal language must be well balanced with what you are offering. 4. Research the company and the sector. In this video that I leave here, I have already talked to you in detail about this, but I will repeat it now. It is essential that you prepare for the interview. To do this, you only need to consult the job description that you will find on the employment portal where you applied. You can also visit the company's website to research it and gather much more information that will surely be very useful in the interview. Thanks to this, you will be able to tailor your responses to the interview much more effectively and also ask much more interesting questions for both you and the interviewer when you have the opportunity. You have no experience, but this does not mean you should present yourself as an uninformed person. In the end, this is perceived as a lack of interest and greatly reduces your chances of getting the job. So now you know, learn about the company, learn about the position, show the motivation you have and the motivation you demonstrate. The attitude you have in the interview, as I have mentioned throughout the video in one way or another, is very important for you to get this position. A fundamental component of a person's attitude is precisely motivation. The topic of motivation deserves a separate video because it is a very deep subject and many people are confused about what it means to be motivated. But I am going to give you a tip that will help you. Motivation is what drives you. So if you ever have doubts about what your motivation is, you just need to ask yourself, what drives you to do what you do? And in the case of the interview you are about to have, the question would rather be what motivates you to work in the position you want at this particular company. And let me give you a heads up with this answer. Don't be childish and say, for example, I need money, that's what drives me. That's obvious, everyone works for money. Go further and ask yourself what you are pursuing when you want to work at that company, what your professional aspirations are, and where you want to see yourself in the future. Think deeply about these questions and the answers to be sure of what your motivation is and how you are going to convey it to your interviewer. This way, you will have many more options to increase the chances of getting the job. These are all the tips I can give you to approach your first interview without experience. But I wouldn't like to end this video without sharing a thought. There is something that helped me a lot when I had no work experience and was doing my first interviews, and that was thinking that everyone who is working right now has been in the same situation you are in now. When I was getting my driver's license, the same thing happened to me. I was very afraid of failing it and of failing it over and over again. And what I thought was, there are people much dumber than me who have a driver's license right now. And there are many people who don't even know how to drive but have a driver's license. So I'm not going to be the first person who is unable to get a driver's license. Well, something very similar is what I thought when I was doing my first interviews. With enough self-criticism and a fairly healthy modesty, what I considered was that in the working world, there are people who are much worse than I will be in the future, even if only for a matter of statistics. I am not the most intelligent person in the world, but I am also not the least intelligent person in the world. So, as I tell you, statistically speaking, it is very likely that I will find a job sooner or later, and the people who have interviewed me have been in the same situation I am in at some point. So patience, encouragement, a balance of confidence, good communication style, thorough research of the company, one interview after another. The volume and experience of doing interviews are also very important. The more interviews you do, the better you will become at them, and the better your interviews are, the more likely you are to get the job. And that's it, nothing more. These are all the tips I can give you. I hope you liked the video and wish you the best of luck for the interview. If you found this useful and would like to see more content like this, you can subscribe to the channel and of course share it with your friends if you think it might help them. That said, good luck and see you later.